Welcome to Brainthropology. Let's talk about our amazing brain and the issues that get us stuck. We all have those moments where life gets overwhelming. It can be related to injury or illness, or an issue with your kids, or just because life is crazy and we need a little help and encouragement. Our team of therapists, expert guests, and clients are here to deep dive into the topics that matter most. We will share information with our listeners that encourages, educates, and empowers. We discuss and provide practical tools and strategies to change lives. We invite you into our community. But be prepared. This listener community is built through vulnerability and might at times be raw and emotional. We are here to provide free hope and support to those who need it most. Our Brainthropology team includes creative and inspirational board-certified occupational therapists, Courtney Wang, Dr. Jessica Smith, Debbie Loftus, and host Meg Scaling.
This episode is brought to you by Galaxy Brain and Therapy Center, helping clients live their best lives by implementing strategies such as those discussed in this podcast. Galaxy Brain and Therapy Center is located in Ann Arbor, Michigan, serving southeastern Michigan for in-person and community-based services. Out-of-state virtual and teletherapy services available for OT, PT, speech, mental health, and mindfulness. Check out their website at galaxybraincenter.com. Welcome to Brainthropology. I am Courtney Wang. I'm your host today, and I am excited to introduce today's guest, Dr. Barbaranne Branca. She is one of the most impressive people that I know. I'm going to have to read off her credentials because the list is too long. She's a board-certified neuropsychologist. She's a certified mindfulness meditation teacher, a certified Zentangle teacher, and a member of the International Mindfulness Teachers Association. And Barb is, one of the questions I like to start a show with is, what brings you joy? So joy is a big factor in so much of what we do in therapy, finding a path back to joy. So I'd love to find out what brings you joy in this life.
I think things that are labeled little, for example, just to be able to have a phone call with my son who lives in another state. I so appreciate that. I'm so happy to be able to talk to him. And every day I have a happy hour on my deck. I just sit on my deck, usually with my husband, and we observe how the birds and the bird families are developing. I love, we have a birdhouse that has a new wren family in it. So the birds, the eggs are incubating right now. And I think also just connecting with other people, just those simple moments where you're together and you feel each other. Those are the kinds of things that bring me joy.
I agree. I am a summer lover myself, and I think one of my big moments of joy this week is getting to do this with you. We've known each other a very long time. We've worked together. We've become friends together. So I introduced you as Dr. Barbaranne Branca. What would you like for me to call you for today's podcast since you're here in a more formal capacity?
Well, I would like you to call me Barb.
All right, Barb, I appreciate that because I was worried I was going to trip up on Dr. Branca the whole time. So I think that you have one of the coolest paths that I know of. Before even the part I'm going to start with, I know that you were big into advocacy in your youth, but then you were at one point a professional mime who toured Europe. That just boggles my mind because right after that, you just said, hey, I'm going to go get a PhD. And at the same time, you were a professional potter. And then you decided to do beaded jewelry. And I know you make this amazing jewelry that I'm completely obsessed with. And then in your 70s, you decided, hey, I have too much free time, which you had no free time because I know you. And you went back for a mindfulness meditation certification and training, and a very intensive one and a prestigious one where you had to be nominated by people who were well known in the field. And then you did a Zentangle training. So Barb, I'm very curious at why in your 70s you decided to go back for that mindfulness meditation training and that Zentangle training.
Well, a lot of times I remember when I was studying psychology at the University of Michigan, that people read Erik Erikson's The 7 Stages of Man, and life seemed to end kind of when you were 25, like there weren't any more stages. And here I was not formally working, but my mind was completely active and I was raring to go. And I started thinking, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I thought, I want to be of service to people. I want to make a commitment to be of service to people. And so I thought about becoming a certified meditation teacher, certified mindfulness meditation teacher, because I've been meditating since 1978. And I know that meditation makes a difference. I know that meditation alleviates suffering. And so I decided I wanted to dedicate my life to that. I also have an artistic side. And what Zentangle is a meditative drawing method. And so I wanted to also have that skill to be able to work with people. The mindfulness meditation teacher training was kind of a graduate level 2-year course. It was pretty intensive. We had to do a practicum. The things that we taught other people were really evaluated by the staff. So that's really why I went back to school, because this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it boggles my mind that, well, you just have a lifelong love of learning in general, but to go back into an intensive school program, I can't believe that you wanted to do that. But I think one of the things you've told me is that you also wanted to help a very specific group of people too. Can you tell me who is your passion project when it comes to some of that mindfulness meditation?
My passion project are people with head injuries, people that have had post-traumatic stress disorder or other kinds of trauma. That is a very special group to me, and I am dedicated to that group of people.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, because mindfulness meditation is an amazing thing for all of us to learn, but you have that trauma-informed practice, which I think is very much needed, and hopefully we'll get into that a little bit more as we go through this podcast.
Yes.
So you're the person that introduced me to mindfulness meditation. I have to say, I was a really big skeptic of the whole thing. It felt, I don't even know how to say it in a non-insulting way, because I know you love it so much, but it felt a little hippie. It felt a little weirdly spiritual, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't want to explore that. And you were my gateway person for meditation, learning that while it is an ancient tradition that may have had its roots in some religions, it really is backed up and well-founded by neuroscience. So what I would love to do is hear a little bit about your first experience with meditation and how you got into meditation.
Well, I have to say I agree with your feeling about meditation, because this was back in the 70s. I really did not want to learn meditation at all. The only concept I had of meditation were the Hare Krishnas. And this is not in any way to denigrate Hare Krishnas, but it looked to me like they tie-dyed sheets, peach-colored, and then sang on the streets. And I thought, no way I'm having any part of that. So I was skeptical. I really didn't want to do it. And at that time I was living in the Netherlands, and I was a professional mime, and I was teaching mime and clowning. And so these 2 Americans who were well-known therapists came over, and they needed a translator for the therapy groups. So I got asked to be the translator. They were meditators. And for a year, they kept after me, said, you have to learn to meditate. You've got to do it. I went, no, I don't want to do it. So finally, I said, okay, I'll go to the introductory program, which started at 7:30. I got there on the dot of 7:30, because no way I was going to hang out in a room with people that I thought were going to be really weird. As it turned out, I opened the door, and everybody in the room was just normal. They were like teachers, store clerks, bankers. I was amazed. And so I'd had an inner debate. This is kind of, I'll reveal this to you. I had an inner debate. There was a part of me that was skeptical, they're not going to do anything. And then this other part of me that thought, wow, like maybe I'll see clouds. Maybe I'll get really great insights. And I secretly was hoping I would levitate.
I want to learn to meditate if that's a skill I can do.
Well, I didn't levitate. So I remember the direction that the teacher gave. It's one of the best instructions I've ever heard, which is whatever happens in meditation is meditation.
I love that.
So I closed my eyes, and lo and behold, I saw clouds. And I was like, kind of ecstatic. I was like, wow, it's happening. It's really happening. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the clouds, there was a speck. And I thought, I don't want that speck. So I pushed it away. And the speck came back, only it was a little bit bigger. And I had this battle. I'd push it away, it'd come back. And finally, I could see what it was. And I was so crestfallen. It was a cheeseburger. What the heck am I doing seeing a cheeseburger in the middle of a meditation? And again, I tried pushing it away. And it came back. I pushed it away. It came back. And finally, that cheeseburger was so huge. I just remember thinking it was as big as a spaceship in the E.T. movie. It was absolutely huge. So the meditation finished, and then we were supposed to share our experiences. I thought, oh man, I don't want to do this. I didn't want people to laugh. And of course, it was hysterical. They were all like laughing like crazy. But the upshot of this meditation for me was really life-changing, because I was at the point in my performing career where I realized I didn't really like to perform. I liked being connected to people, but I didn't like performing. And when people laughed, it reinforced that feeling. And I decided that I would stop performing, leave Europe, and come back to the States and complete my PhD. Well, then the next thing that happened, the next 3 days, I had a terrible taste in my throat. It was awful. And I realized what the taste was. It was meat. Now, I would prefer to be vegetarian, and I tried to be vegetarian as a performer, but it was really hard because you have strange hours, like you're getting home at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., and the kind of food that was available usually meant I was taking sausage out of a sandwich and just eating 2 pieces of bread that a sausage had been on. After those 3 days, I easily became vegetarian. The next biggest thing that happened to me, I've smoked ever since I was 12. I was a bad girl. And I'd wanted to quit smoking, and I tried to quit smoking several times, and it didn't work. But with meditation, I was able to stop smoking, and I had smoked for 20 years, 2 packs a day. So now this is quite an extraordinary meditation. This is not what usually happens, but some of us, there's a saying, even a wet log eventually catches fire. So I figured I really needed a couple of big whacks to help me wake up. Now, I know we tried meditating together. What was your first meditation experience like?
Mine was not big or earth-shattering at all. And what I like about what that guy said is whatever happens in meditation is meditation. So I love your story, but I think that having a very smaller experience is still a valid experience in the world of meditation. So I believe you did my first meditation for me after heckling me for an extended period of time. But I would like to say you heckled me so much that I did it. And then you and I presented at a brain injury conference on neuroscience and the benefits of mindfulness meditation. So I'm obviously sold on this concept. But my experience was, I think we did a body scan, and I would call him blobby. It was just a little blob of light that would kind of float around and change colors. And then I would focus on my body parts at the same time. And I felt so calm. I have a job where I am sprinting nonstop. And we did it in the middle of my workday. And that sense of calm stayed with me into the evening with my family and my kids. And at the time, my kids were toddlers. So to maintain a sense of calm with toddlers I do think really speaks towards that practice as
Yes.
well. But yeah, I would definitely like to say that set expectations for whatever meditation, whatever happens is that meditation for us.
Usually, well, then I had a couple of years of just experiencing my mind as being extremely distracted and very busy. I really learned, and that was a great lesson for me because I didn't realize, oh, your mind is like kind of wild. It's really undisciplined and very distracted. So I had a number of meditations, hundreds of meditations that were more down to earth, shall we say.
Yeah, I think that we all go up and down. It's going to ebb and flow for us for sure. Well, one of the ideas I want to kind of explore is one that we mentioned in the beginning, where one of my misconceptions of meditation was that it was religious, and that made me uncomfortable. I already had my own concepts that I had, and I didn't want to disrupt that. Can you go through a little bit and talk about, is mindfulness meditation a spiritual practice or is it a religion, and kind of explore that with us today?
It's not a religion. It's meditation is a tool for training the mind. And there are a number of ways to define mindfulness meditation, but what they all have in common is being in the present moment without judgment and with compassion. So the teachings that I and my colleagues do are secular. This is a secular curriculum. Anyone can do it. And you don't have to change your beliefs. It's not a matter of conflicting with your beliefs. It's a tool that you can use to get to know your best self, your highest self.
Well, and I think that also ties a little bit into the history of meditation as well. When I really learned about it, it seems like there are practices of mindfulness in almost every world religion. And it's interesting because it came up independently of each other, where Christians pray. We can already think of those Buddhist monks meditating, and there's so many more examples of that. And I think that speaks towards like a universal truth, is that it's something that we as humans need, is that time and that inward reflection. And so I would love for you to kind of go through the known history of mindfulness meditation.
Well, it's an ancient art and science. So there are wall art drawings of people in seated meditation poses as early as 5000 BCE. We know that in a type of medicine practiced in India, Ayurvedic medicine, that meditation poses and meditation itself are part of what's prescribed in the medical treatment. You were talking about the universality of the fact that being in the present moment is beneficial for human beings. You see that in almost all major religions. Catholics have centering prayer. Islam has Sufism. You see it in major philosophies of the world. For example, the transcendentalists like Emerson and Thoreau, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Even Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, taught this to his soldiers, the importance of being present. Which you can imagine if you were in battle, you'd have to be really present.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the most present situation you can be in, is life or death situations. So now that we know the history, and hopefully we've made this feel like something that's safe for every single person to explore, I think it'd be good for us to go into what are the benefits of mindfulness meditation. Because I know for me, when I try to mention it to a client or a friend who I think would benefit, I tend to describe it in very simple terms of just saying mindfulness trains your focus, and focus is the foundation for all new learning. So you can only learn if you're able to focus on something, and then you can choose the direction in which you grow and learn by where you now choose to use your superpower of focus. But I know it's so much more than that. So I'd love for you to kind of tell us what those benefits are of mindfulness meditation.
Well, we looked at studies. They did MRI studies of Buddhist monks. And they found that their synaptic connections, the connections in the brain, were extremely robust. And so that meant that all communication within the brain was very rapid, faster than non-meditators. Another study showed that if you meditate for as little as 11 to 20 minutes a day for a couple of weeks, that you will have a much sharper mental focus. There's another study that showed that expert meditators in their 50s and 60s, that they developed a much more wrinkly cortex. So the cortex is the outer layer of the brain, and it's the part of the brain that does that higher order thinking, abstract thinking, introspection, executive functioning, so that meditators, lifetime meditators, have a bigger cortex than people who don't meditate.
And that translates to better cognitive skills, the better ability to problem solve, think, and plan your day and move forward and react in a timely manner, right?
Yes.
And then there's also health benefits, like physical benefits to mindfulness.
Okay, there are so many benefits. There's so many health benefits. We know that it increases the functioning of the immune system. It lowers blood pressure. It reduces stress. We know that it improves cardiac and GI diseases. People get better sleep. So that's just some of the health benefits. There's so many health benefits to it. Psychologically, what we observe is that people have an overall increased sense of well-being. They have less psychological symptoms, so less depression, less rumination, less anxiety. They have increased emotional regulation, so they don't freak out or get hyper angry really fast.
I feel like that could impact relationships so much.
Yes. They have better emotional regulation. They don't get as emotionally reactive. They have improved sleep. They have better insight, and they have increased empathy. So there's a lot of psychological benefits to meditation. Cognitively, you think better. You have an improved working memory. So working memory is like when you come in the house, the phone's ringing, and you've got your keys. You put your keys down, you answer the phone, but you remember where you put your keys. Mm-hmm. Improved attentional ability and improved cognitive reserve. So there's so many benefits to meditation.
Well, I think there was some article or video that I watched at some point that talked about what if you could have this magic little pill, and what if it would improve your ability to think, and it would improve your memory, and would improve your sense of self, and it would improve your relationships, and it would improve your heart health. Would you take this little pill? And they're like, well, it's mindfulness meditation. So you and I were talking that it can be like this magic little pill with no side effects, but you actually corrected me when I said that, and you kind of drew me back into that sense of your trauma-informed practice, because mindfulness meditation, yes, it can be good for everyone, but some people might need an expert who has that trauma-informed practice to be able to guide them into a safe space for that meditation.
Yes. You know, 90%, according to David Trelevin, who wrote the book Trauma-Sensitive Mindfulness, 90% of people in our culture have experienced some kind of trauma. It doesn't mean they have PTSD or anything like that. They've experienced trauma. So there's a lot of trauma. But of that percent of people, there are people that have lasting effects from trauma. So you don't want to sit them in a quiet space and have them sort of, quote, do nothing, end quote, because it can bring up a lot of feelings. And that's why I practice trauma-informed mindfulness. There are ways to introduce mindfulness to people that doesn't re-stimulate old traumatic memories.
I think that's very important, is to make that safe place first. Absolutely. Well, let's go into a little bit of why we all need it. We've talked about those benefits, but why do we need it? And one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot is how distracted our culture is, and how the invention of a smartphone is kind of a major social experiment that we don't really know the results of, but we kind of do. You and I have read a lot of research articles related to distractedness and how that impacts cognitive activity and that kind of stuff. So let's go into a little bit of why we need that mindfulness meditation.
Well, we know that 96% of Americans have cell phones, and 86% of them have smartphones. This research study found that Apple phone users unlock their phone an average of 80 times a day. So in a 12-hour day, that's every 10 minutes. And Android users were worse. They unlock their phones 110 times a day. So when you look at Americans, like our culture is kind of anti-attention. We have news that comes in sound bites. We have meals that come quickly. We have cell phones. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. And we're very, very distracted. And we just want things in short, multi-second groupings. They did a study with 260 students to see how well they studied. And they were surprised to find that students, on the average, attended to their studies 6 minutes at a time. They were interrupted, or they interrupted themselves with their laptops, their cell phones, and Facebook. So when you look at that, you can see how hard it is for people to learn how to focus. You can't learn if you can't focus.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely foundational for that ability to learn and that ability to grow.
One of the things about our short attention span is that we multitask. And it's an illusion that multitasking improves your performance, because it doesn't. There was a study at the University of Sussex in the United Kingdom on multitaskers. And they did fMRIs of these multitaskers, and they found that the anterior singular cortex was less dense in high multitaskers. And that particular part of the brain is responsible for emotional control, cognitive control. So you can see how important it is not to multitask. The multitaskers also did not have a good sense of how well they were doing. They thought they were doing much better than the people who were doing one thing at a time, but they weren't. And they had trouble switching from one task to another. They were much slower at it than people who were doing one thing at a time. So multitasking is not a good idea. Another study at the University of London showed that people who multitasked had a temporary loss of IQ points of about 15 points. It's the same as if you stayed up all night or you smoked marijuana for a period of time.
Yeah, there's a great video that I love to show all of my clients that explains how we can control and train our brains, and is the concept of neuroplasticity, that at no matter what age or what your injury is, we can continue to grow and train your brain and create new neural pathways. And I will link that in our show notes, but it's about the science of practice. And it is really great about showing, it was really a mindfulness exercise they put in there about some basketball players. And they separated them into two different groups. And one group actually practiced free throws. And then the other group just thought about the correct form, like that mind-muscle connection, and went through and thought about practicing free throws. And they showed that those two groups, they actually improved at the same rates as one another.
Yes.
So, we've talked about mindfulness for everyone. You've had a trauma, and I'm sure some people can say, man, I really snap a little bit too much at my kids. Maybe I should do this. But you could also be a high-level athlete and improve your performance while you're riding on a bus with your eyes closed, which is a really, really cool thing to me.
That is amazing, yes.
So we've gone through all the benefits and everything else, but I think there is so much about, there's many different ways to do meditation. There's guided, there's sitting there in silence. There's so many different things that so many options feel a little intimidating when I think about it. And it leaves me as a novice with a sense of, I don't know where to start. So I would love for you to kind of tell us how we can start our own mindfulness practice in maybe a simple getting started place.
Okay. So when you come to a mindfulness meditation session, you might sit and listen to the teacher talk you through a meditation. You might do a walking meditation outside. You might do easy flow movement. You'll do breath meditations. You do meditations on awareness of your body. Everything happens in the body, so we'll do body scans. If you want to start a practice, I recommend that you use guided meditations. And these are readily available. You can download Insight Timer or Calm or Headspace or 10% Happier. If you're going to start a meditation practice, along with getting guided meditations, you should pick a place in your home. And it doesn't have to be a separate room. It can be the right end of the couch, okay? Or it can be a certain chair. And you want to make that area beautiful. Put some flowers there or some stones that you like. Just let it be a beautiful place for you to sit. It's best to practice at the same time every day. And a lot of people practice meditation right after they get up because your mind is fresh and it sets the tone for the day. That would be really the simplest thing to do, and if you're just starting out, start out with like 5 minutes. Just set a little gentle timer and sit and listen to a guided meditation. When you're done, ask yourself, what did I notice? What did I experience? And it's often helpful to write that down in a journal.
So I really like that idea of starting simple. I love the idea of starting with a tool like an app and just doing a few minutes at a time. I think that is really, it's not intimidating to say, I'm going to sit still for 1 minute or 5 minutes and listen to something. And those apps do a really good job of telling you the length of time that they are and everything else. I really like that because then I know I have 1 minute while I'm waiting for the water to boil. I can fit anything in that minute. And that kind of leads me to one of the biggest excuses I hear for people not doing mindfulness meditation, and I am talking about myself, is I told you as we were getting ready for this that I felt a little guilty about talking about this topic because I don't have a big formal meditation practice. And you said, but you definitely have an informal meditation practice. So I'm a mom. I work full time. I have amazing kids who I told Barb I don't really watch TV because I don't want to miss a minute of just being around and with my family and my husband too. I do love him too, but my kids are so cute. And so with that, I set aside time in the morning for a workout. That's been who I am as a person. I was very athletic as a kid. And that mindfulness, integrating another thing that took up time by myself, was hard for me to do. But I am definitely a person who I love to walk outside and not put in headphones. And I love to watch the sunrise and look at the world and hear the birds. And sometimes I just try to count the number of different bird calls that I might hear on a walk and then eventually I'm trying to identify them. But that informal practice has worked well for me for someone who is very busy. Sometimes I can take a minute and do some intention setting for my day. But could you go into a little bit of formal practices and informal practices and the ways that people meditate?
Yes. So formal meditation, we've already sort of talked about. That's where you have a set time and you can use a guided app rather than just sitting there, or what's called choiceless awareness. So I recommend in the beginning that you use guided meditations. So that's what formal meditation is. That's you're sitting and you're practicing training the mind, training the brain. Informal meditation is just as important as formal meditation. So let's say someone went to church and they heard words about treating each other nicely, but then they go home and they shout at their family. They didn't get it. Because you don't you're not just meditating during that formal 1 minute, 5 minute, or 20-minute period. You want to practice it in real life. So often, like in class, I'll give assignments. For example, this week, whenever you're at a stop sign or a stoplight, practice mindfulness. What do you observe? What do you notice? Or I might give an instruction for informal meditation. At some point during the day, just do one thing at a time. So informal meditation is how you live your life. For example, if you're in the grocery line and the person in front of you is taking a long time to check out, you might get some mean thoughts in your mind, or you might start to feel irritated. You can just change that inside of yourself. You don't need to get irritated. You can have a different perspective on it. A third thing that we do in meditation is called attitudinal foundations. So every lesson, I might suggest another attitude. For example, curiosity. Curiosity is a great gift, and you can use it in a number of ways. For example, if you're having an argument with someone, you can just step back and become gently curious. Why does this person think the way that they're thinking, rather than argumentative with them?
I like that a lot. And I would say my one tip as someone who's not been meditating every day since the 70s is something that you taught me. And in a meditation, you said that it's okay when your mind wanders. You shouldn't feel guilty about it, because I might be a closeted perfectionist. And you told me, no, that's an opportunity to learn. That's an opportunity to bring you have awareness that it wandered. And that's actually something to celebrate. And then you can bring your attention back to something. So I don't want anyone to be intimidated, especially in those formal meditations when their mind wanders. And you should actually celebrate that you noticed that it wandered and you bring it back to that. And that made it feel very accessible, because instead of feeling bad that I let my mind wander, I realized that I should be celebrating the fact that I was training my brain.
Absolutely. That's a moment of mindfulness. And it's as important as if you're focusing on the breath or focusing on the body. That's important, of course. But when you notice that your mind has wandered, which, by the way, is totally normal, it happens to all of us all the time, that's a moment of mindfulness. And that's something you should cherish.
Yeah, I learned that from you. And thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
So I would love for you to go through and do just a very simple 1-minute guided meditation, just to give people a splash of this magic pill that we've been talking about. And then we can wrap up today's show with one of your favorite quotes.
Okay. So if you would please, just adjust your sitting posture. So you want to have both feet flat on the floor, about hips width apart, and you want to feel that the weight of your body is equally distributed on the right and the left buttock. Elongate your spine and let your sternum rise upwards. Close your eyes, or if you prefer, gaze downwards with a soft focus. Just let yourself arrive to stillness. And as you sit there, perhaps you're aware of pressure or gravity, the weight of your body on the chair. Perhaps you're aware of temperature, that where you have bare skin, it's different than where your skin is touching your clothing. Just focus on the breath coming in and the breath going out. The breath coming in and the breath going out. As you breathe in, think calm. And as you breathe out, think kind. Breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, what I give to the world is kind. Just focus on the breath. And now let this meditation come to a close. As you're ready, take a nice deep inhale and a long, slow exhalation And then open your eyes and stretch a little bit. Thank you so much, Courtney.
I love that. Thank you, Barb. I also feel that sense of, it's interesting how those words that you said, breathing in calm, I felt my body become calm. And when you said kind, it made me instantly like feel kind and started thinking of ways I could do that and give that to the world. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So since I always mispronounce his name,
Okay.
I would love for you to give us our ending quote for today.
Let me get my piece of paper here so I can read it. This is from one of my teachers, a Vietnamese monk, Thich Nhat Hanh. He said about mindfulness, he said, do not lose yourself in the past. Do not lose yourself in the future. Do not get caught in your anger, worries, or fears. Come back to the present moment and touch life deeply.
Thank you, Barb.
Thanks, Courtney.
While we love what we do and are as passionate as they come, the information on this podcast and discussion is for educational purposes only and should not replace professional medical advice. Please consult your own healthcare provider if you are seeking medical advice, diagnoses, or treatment for you or anyone else. We do our very best to provide correct information, but please understand science and medicine is ever-changing. We welcome feedback, comments, suggestions, or correction of errors. This disclaimer applies to any guest or contributors to the podcast or blog.